Good morning and welcome to A Glow Life. Today I'm going to be reading an excerpt from Chapter 8, An Oversized Egg, July 15, 2019. As I lay in bed on my first night in the ancient city of Athens, I'd only been here 12 hours, yet somehow it felt like home. It was curious to me, how was the feeling so profound? My mind and heart began glancing over the years. I was searching for a time when I'd felt a similar type of energy. Then it resonated. Into my mind's eye came a picture of the little cabin in the woods, the beloved place where my inner path of healing began. Athens felt so similar to the motherly love I'd felt there. September 1, 2014, The Inner Road. Once Mr. Morrow had been eradicated from my life, I had plenty of time to delve into study and research. I took full advantage of hiking on the trails and meditation centered on the wooden plank, where Morrow's mementos went up in flames that spanned the creek. I was immersing in creating recipes, food photography, and writing the blog. Now I had plenty of time for pondering and self-introspection, time to simply be. One of the first steps in the journey was to become truly comfortable with my own self. Throughout life, I'd often felt like a living expression of the childhood tale, The Ugly Duckling, whose story begins with an oversized egg in a mother duck's nest. The extra-large egg took much longer to hatch than the other eggs. When it finally did hatch, it produced a large, gray, and very ugly duckling. The gray duckling was mercilessly teased by all the adult ducks and ducklings in the neighborhood. Mama Duck did her best to love her oversized duckling. However, its ugliness and oversized body wasn't to be accepted, not even by its own siblings. The ugly duckling was so saddened by being the outcast, so it flew away, hoping to find a more peaceful place to live. It tried several locations without any luck, eventually deciding living alone was the best solution. Throughout the lonely winter, the ugly duckling hid in the brush, watching beautiful flocks of swans come and go on the nearby lake. When it became springtime, the gray duckling waddled down to the lake to swim. The ugly duckling did not recognize her reflection as she gazed into the water. No longer was she an ugly duckling. She had transformed into an exquisite white swan. The parallels between my childhood and the ugly duckling tale were uncanny. I too was extra large in stature, considered ugly and generally unaccepted throughout the majority of my growing up years. I was born with dyslexia in mathematics, limited vision, and poor hearing. While my mind was bright and creative, I didn't fit the same mold as my siblings and peers. So much has changed since the 1970s, back when little was known about dyslexia or how to support a child with it. Throughout elementary school, I was teased mercilessly and suffered greatly. No one knew what to do with me, so I was simply tossed into resource classes up until my junior high school years. I felt utterly broken. Through self-reflection, I recognized my childhood home life was discouraging. I was completely misunderstood. A combination of strong will and creative mind coupled with a robust zest for living was extremely difficult for all three of my parents to manage. In the end, I spent many hours alone, playing in my imagination, creating fantasy tales and wishing life was anything other than what I had been given. I was not an easy child to raise. My temper tantrums were epic. Oftentimes, the only release was to erupt in anger and rage. I realized under all the anger was suffering from a lack of connection and knowing how to deal with emotions. I didn't know how to work with the intensity of these feelings. I would have greatly benefited from having an emotionally mature influence who taught the skills needed to process them. I do not harbor negativity toward my folks. They did the very best they knew how to do, as I did with my own children. Throughout my childhood, I was constantly uprooted. Every 3 to 4 years, our family moved. So with each new town, I made the conscious effort to recreate myself. I yearned to feel the emptiness and pain inside of me. I became a chameleon, ever-changing, driven by the hope that a different version of me might somehow find acceptance. So plainly, I needed to start at the very beginning. It was essential to get to the roots of myself, to dig into my past and understand why I was so deeply uncomfortable in my own body. At a very young age, I turned to food for comfort, as I discovered overeating numbed out the strong emotions. By the age of 5, I was addicted to sugar, literally spending every penny on it, and food had become a coping mechanism. By the age of 8, I was on the charts for childhood obesity. For the most part, overeating ended the bad behavior, but it also began an addiction to food. By the time I reached my tween years, I was on the dieting pendulum swing, having failed many self-imposed diets along with Weight Watchers twice. My BMI was off the charts and my self-esteem was in the toilet. The dieting yo-yo continued till I was 29 years old and the scale hit 235 pounds. I lacked vitality and stamina. I wasn't able to fully engage in life. Inside, I yearned to have peace with food and my body. I felt like I'd never figure it out. To hear more about my healing journey in this aspect, grab your copy of A Glow, Zoe, or Life and join the journey.